It's all about, in this industry, aviation community, it's all about posturing. You have to be mentally ready to jump when the opportunity presents itself. But not only that, but you have to be in good standing, because the community is small and your name gets around quick.
How many people go through life doing work they really don't like, but every day dreaming of, say, working in the aviation industry? They say it's too late. They think it would be too hard. They think it would go against conventional norms. If you never go after what you want, you'll never have it. This is Fly the Transition. Join us as we soar through the captivating stories of individuals embracing a thrilling journey into the aviation industry. From pilots spreading their wings to mechanics fine-tuning the engines and a myriad of industry professionals, each with a unique tale to tell. Get ready to dive into the diverse backgrounds, the pivotal moments that propelled their leap, and the sheer determination that transformed their aspirations into reality. We're not just about dreams. We're about making them take flight. Welcome to Fly the Transition. And now your host, Jim Schilling.
Welcome back, everyone, to another inspiring episode of Fly the Transition, where we will explore yet another journey of aviation career transformation. I am your host, Jim, and I am excited for AirVenture. I am leaving in probably 24 hours to head out to Oshkosh, Wisconsin to join all of my aviation friends and family for another fun year at AirVenture. I mean, it really is one of my favorite weeks of the entire year. Reconnecting with all my friends at AirVenture is always a real good time, even though sometimes it's people that live relatively close to me, but we drive or fly several hundred miles away to connect there. There's a lot of things on my agenda this year, but I'm going to start out with a couple of events that I will be at that I hope to connect with some of you at. First and foremost will be on Monday, the first day of the show. So that will be Monday, July 21st. That is the YouTuber meet and greet. I am not part of that panel. However, it is pretty common for other content creators, other YouTubers, etc., to use that event as an opportunity to meet with their listeners as well as meet with their own favorite content creators. So I will be lurking in the audience of that event. So that will be on Monday, July 21st, Forum Stage 7 at 2:30 p.m. The forum stages are just north of the control tower, so if you find that and just go north a little ways, you'll find all of the different forum stage pavilions in that area. The other event that I am super excited about is being able to host a forum this year at AirVenture, so I'll be hosting the Aviation Podcaster Question and Answer and Meetup Forum. It's going to be somewhat similar to that YouTuber forum, except for it's going to be all your favorite aviation podcasters, and some maybe you haven't heard of that could be your next favorite aviation podcast. So that event will be on Saturday, July 26th. It will be at 11:30 a.m. at forum stage number 3. So if you had heard a previous advertisement for this forum, originally we were set for forum stage number 6. There's been some shuffling with the schedule with EAA, so we have been moved over to forum stage 3, which is in the exact same area as all the other forum stages, so just come find us at 3 instead of 6. I'm also working on maybe one or two other events with the Flying Midwest podcast crew to have a meetup. So keep an eye on our social medias, either Flying Midwest Podcasts on either Instagram or Facebook, or you can follow me personally on either of those platforms at Fly Midwest Jim. So I plan to post different updates, photos, videos throughout the week. So if you're interested in what we're doing at AirVenture, you can follow me on there. We're also going to bring back the AirVenture Touch and Go mini episode series on Flying Midwest. So if you want to follow along with that, you can follow that podcast as well to hear what we're up to at AirVenture. All right, even with all the AirVenture excitement, I do still have an interview in this episode. So I want to welcome Caleb Green to the Fly the Transition podcast. He is a corporate jet pilot. He owns a flight school. He is a safety officer with his company, and he is a military officer in the Army National Guard, specializing in logistics. He's going to talk to us all about the different challenges that he's faced and how he can juggle all of these different things to be successful in the aviation industry. Thanks for joining me, Caleb.
Hello, good to be here.
So we're going to talk a bit about your journey into aviation, some of your time in the military, and all sorts of things like that. So thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, look forward to it.
All right. So tell me how you were first exposed to aviation.
Well, when I was 6 months old.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So my dad was a Marine, and when I was born, we were stationed at Cherry Point, right next to the airport.
Yeah.
So literally, I grew up to airplanes and jets literally flying right over our house. You know, shaking the windows, right on the doors, and
sound of freedom.
That was my what I listened to go to sleep every night for nap time.
Okay.
So I mean, that's really where it started. Is, you know, it's been something that I've been passionate about since literally as far as I can remember.
So as you're growing up around that, is that a direction you wanted to go with your life, or?
Yeah. Like even growing up, I was an airplane nerd. Like I was a huge World War II airplane nerd. I played all the video games. Growing up, I was going to be a pilot. That was going to be it.
Okay. So as you get older, do you take pilot training on your own, or is that something that you looked at later, or how does that work for you?
So originally my plan was I was going to go to college and join the Air Force ROTC program, the equivalent of the ROTC program. Obviously, that didn't happen. I went to College of the Ozarks instead. They had an Army ROTC program. So I thought, well, cool, I'll just join ROTC and I'll be a pilot there in the Army. And then we got through to the selection process, and unfortunately, I missed the cutoff because everything is based on, you know, merit ranking and points. Yeah. And I missed the cutoff for aviation by like 7 points.
Oof.
So, and at that point, then that's when I went into the logistics in the Army, and so I was doing flight lessons on the side as I could. But when I went to the Army, everything really got put on pause for like 4 years, and then when I got out, that's when I started picking it back up again. Gotcha.
So let's talk a bit about your time in the Army. Was logistics a direction you were trying to go with your degree, or what's your degree in, I guess?
So my degree is agricultural business.
Okay.
So I was going to be a fighting farmer.
There you go.
But when I went to there's this summer camp that all RTC cadets go to, and they bring out, you know, the dog and pony show of all the different branches you can go to in the Army, and I was really drawn to logistics just because the puzzle of it, you know, how do you get something from point A to point B, really intrigued me. So that was I had aviation as my number one choice, and logistics was my second choice.
Okay.
As far as that branch I wanted to go to.
So it's not like they said, well, you can't go into aviation. How do you feel about logistics? And you're like, not anything like that.
No. I was definitely bummed, but I still, I still got something that interested me a lot, and it's been a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun doing it.
Sure. So tell me a bit about the job of logistics in the Army. How does that work?
Well, to break it down super simple, I'm told to get a thing from here to there, however means possible. So, like when I was active duty, my job was to deploy. We had a squadron of Apaches. So my job was in 2015 to take 300 soldiers and all this equipment, all this cargo, and ship it to the Middle East via, planes, trains, boats, whatever we could fit it on, and then put it to the Middle East, disperse it, bring it back, and then bring it back home. Now my job is in the National Guard. I'm a commander of a forward support company. Essentially, we're the mobile gas station for our unit. So now my job is how do I get all the fuel, all the food, all the ammunition? How do I fix all the people's equipment so they can continue to blow things up?
Sure.
So that's really what logistics is. It's all the things behind the scenes that goes on to make sure that the person pulling the string or the bullet, whatever, hits target.
Okay. And I'd imagine there's just so much more in the background that goes on with that than the average person probably thinks.
There's a lot of moving pieces to get a bullet from point A to point B.
I bet. Yeah. So, was there anything specifically challenging about that job, or anything you specifically enjoyed?
Oh yeah. Again, it's the puzzle. My current job right now is, I support a field artillery battalion. So we've got 3 batteries, we call them, and each of them have cannons. And my job is to not only make sure those cannons have all the munitions they need, but they have the correct munitions. Then the trucks that pull the cannons have the fuel, and then the trucks that need the fuel are maintained and work. So yeah, and then the people that drive the machines have food and the water. So yeah, it's just a puzzle, and I like puzzles.
Yeah, I bet. Anything else you want to cover on the logistic front, or do you want to shift into aviation? I mean, we could talk. I do have another question.
But I think logistics actually, in a weird way, did help prepare me mentally for aviation, because aviation's nothing more than a giant puzzle too.
Okay.
Maybe not as many, maybe not as many moving pieces, but it's definitely the similar headspace.
Okay. So when did you decide to start pursuing aviation then? I mean, had you done some flight lessons on your own? I think you mentioned that you did some lessons and then you went to the Army. So tell me a bit about what that looked like for you, like your aviation journey.
So I started lessons when I was a sophomore in college, just paid as I went, and I got to solo. But then when I commissioned, obviously I didn't have the time or money to continue.
Sure.
So 2018, when I got back from deployment, me and my wife sat down and she was like, I really can't do that again, like you deploying.
Okay.
So she's the one that actually kind of put the bug in my head of, hey, you've always talked about aviation. Why don't you start doing that again? So the last year I was in active duty, I had an incredible commander and really good support network. And literally they just said, well, as long as you're doing what we need you to do in the Army, be here when you can. And I just spent the last year literally living at the airport, flying every chance I could get. And that was a real big blessing, because I didn't have to take a loan out for the longest time, because the military was paying pretty good and I had very low expenses. So I just literally put my whole paycheck into flying, and then I got my private and instrument that way, almost all of my commercial. And then I think I had like 50 or 60 more hours to do. And then I moved back here to Branson, Missouri, to link back up with my wife. And at that point, then I took out the last, I took out a personal loan, finished everything up. It was like a $30,000 personal loan. But because I had, good equity in my truck and all kinds of stuff, it was no big deal. So I used that then to live off of and finish up my commercial and instructor ratings before I could start actually getting a job. And then I started my first job in 2019 is when I started my first official flying job.
Okay. So as you're going through that process, were you doing this through school? Were you doing it through like just a freelance CFI, or?
All of it was Part 91.
Okay.
Yep. All of it was just me and a Joe and an airplane in an airport. There's
nothing wrong with that.
No. I mean, that is, looking back on it, like that is, I think, probably the best way to go through flight training. It's unfortunately the large institutions now that we have, and this is coming from a guy that hires these people to work for me. Yeah. They come out of school and they're just a stamp. They're just a stamped press pilot. Chink. However, they're not an individual. So they don't have quite the problem solving. They don't have quite the experiences, because, the schools have to, just for legality and insurance and all other reasons, they had to be very tight and strict on the parameters. So a lot of the critical maturing mistakes, you can't have there because the school literally can't afford it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, I was all 91, and that's why I'm doing 91 school now, because I think just the overall, number one, the cost effectiveness of it, the ability to have that individualized approach to your training is just, you can't beat it.
Yeah, and that's the approach I took when I was doing all my flight training. I enjoyed that too, because I think if you get stuck, it's easier to move to a different subject for a little bit and come back, as opposed to that really rigid structure sometimes in the 141 school. Not that it's a bad program.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, 100%.
I like that flexibility for myself with my own training. So
Yeah.
we talked a bit about your financial considerations as you got into this already as far as the loan, but did you have any other challenges as you were working through your ratings to get towards flying?
Luckily I was in a very, very unique position where I was able to do a lot of it just out of pocket with no problems at all. My wife at the time was living here in Branson working, so she was literally taking care of herself, her rent, her car, everything, and then I took care of my rent, my car, back in the Army world. So having her able to support herself was just, incredible. So
Yeah.
I was able to dump everything I could into flying. And then that's what really set us up for that, small loan. And then even when I was a baby pilot just starting out, trying to scramble for hours, she was able to carry me and her. About 85% of the budget for the household came out of her check.
Okay.
So again, having her alongside me in that process was just invaluable. And I wouldn't be here without her.
That's awesome. I think it's always great when you hear like the support that happens in the background to help make this happen. So that's great that worked well for you. So when you get out of the Army, did you go right into flying, or were you still working through ratings of that part?
Well, so when I was working through my ratings, I was transitioning from active duty to the National Guard. So I'm still in the National Guard right now.
Okay.
I'm coming up on 14 years. Yeesh.
Awesome.
So yeah, that was the transition. And, again, me being in the military helped a lot. Just from the simple standpoint of, one, I had at least some kind of an income every month because we have our drills. But the real, secret sauce to the financial benefit was the health insurance.
Sure.
Because the military is like, I think $200 a month for me and my wife. And we've got, really good health care through the military. So that expense alone, saved us probably $1,000 a month. And that's one of those little hidden benefits that really set me up for success in this career transition that I didn't fully appreciate at the time. But now I'm like, wow, that was helpful.
Yeah. I'll bet. So once you get to professionally flying, what path do you take there? What does that progression look like for you?
It was random and lucky.
Okay. If it worked,
yeah, it worked. Don't know how it worked, but it worked. So 2020 happened, and of course, the whole world went into lockdown.
Yep.
I was really fortunate at the time. I only took like a month off. I think that was it. Okay. I had several doctors that were students of mine at the time, and they were like, "Are you wearing a mask? I'm wearing a mask. Are you safe? I'm safe. Let's go fly."
Okay.
So it was 1 month of sitting in my house twiddling my thumbs, and I was I was able to use the stimulus checks from that time to fund my multi-engine.
Okay.
So that's how I funded my multi-engine rating, all my time building, and I had an incredible friend who had a twin turbo Aztec F model, and he was like, "I'm not flying this thing enough. If you just put fuel in it, you can fly it."
No kidding. That's a good
No
break.
kidding. So literally during that COVID time frame when we had the monthly stimulus checks coming in, my wife was still working, and my whole stimulus check went straight into multi, right into that gas tank. So that's where I was able to build a lot of my multi time, which then set me up for in 2021. I was brokering airplanes. I started my own aircraft brokering as I was bored. So I was buying and selling airplanes, and I just randomly happened to have a buyer for a Glass Air 2 RG in Dallas. And so I sold it to him, we did the deal. Then I flew it down to him, delivered him the airplane, and I got out on the ramp, and we just spent probably 30 minutes talking. His name is Steven Papadopoulos. And 20 minutes into the conversation, he's like, "So tell me about your flying. Like, what do you do? What have you done?" I told him I was at like 2,000 hours at the time. I had like, I don't know, $100 a multi. And he was like, "You want to come fly a Falcon 50?" And I was like, "What's that?" He was like, showed me a picture, and I was like, "Holy smokes!" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm a chief pilot over here at this charter operation. Just shoot me your resume." And I think it was 2 weeks to the day I was in Dallas in simulator going to training.
No kidding.
So my career, or my transition from general aviation to professional jet flying, is definitely not standard.
Yeah, okay. That's like right place, right time, good connection.
Right place, right time. But I'll tell you what I took away from that, and this is what I tell all these other guys around here, the people that I mentor and my instructors. It's all about in this industry, in this aviation community. It's all about posturing.
Sure.
You have to be mentally ready to jump when the opportunity presents itself. But not only that, but you have to be in good standing, because the community is small and your name gets around quick.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to be someone that other people will talk about, in a good way. And then third, you have to keep your nose to the grind. You never know where it's going to come from. You never know when that phone's going to ring or what email or random conversations. I literally was taught to do for 20 minutes on a ramp in Dallas. And he offered me a job. But because I had kept my nose clean, I had grinded and grinded and grinded, and I had a good reputation. I had excellent people that he could call and ask questions about. It was all the background work that allowed for that 20 minutes of success. And that's what I preach to these guys is you never ever know who your next employer is going to be. You never know who you're going to be talking to that might be employing you. So always ask yourself, did I leave a positive impression on this individual? Whether that be, hey, we're going to go fly today, but man, this weather ain't looking good, and I think we should call it because of X, Y, Z. So not only demonstrating like, hey, I'm actually a really cool guy and I work hard, but I also have common sense. I also have ADM. I also have like all these other critical aspects that we look for in aviation. He saw that, and that's how I was hired.
Wow, that's awesome. I do want to go back on something, though.
Yeah.
You talk a bit about your time doing aircraft brokering.
Yep.
So for those that aren't familiar with how that works, can you talk to us about the process of buying and selling aircraft through brokering?
Yeah. It's a lot of lessons learned that were expensive.
Okay.
So in really simple terms, my how do I put this? I tried to make sure that my friends who were looking to purchase an airplane weren't buying a piece of junk. Okay. So the whole job of a broker, in my opinion, should be assuring that your client gets the best possible deal and the best possible airplane. So I typically just do it for friends, but they'll contact me and they'll say, "Hey, I'm looking for an Aero, or I'm looking for this." And my process always begins with, okay, cool. So that's what you want. You think, awesome. Let's start from the beginning though. Like I always tell my clients, what is the mission? Because you cannot look for an airplane until you have a clear, defined parameter mission set. And as we go through that, sometimes they're like, oh, maybe the Aero wasn't the right choice because I need to fly 4 people more often than not. So maybe I need to look at something like a Cherokee 6. So that's where we start. Is really we dial in, like, what is your mission? Okay, cool. Now what is your budget? And then we compare, does that budget meet your mission? Because I was making $60,000 and go and buy a Cherokee 6. But then after we have that conversation, then we dive into the process of, we together look at airplanes, and I'm really there to advise on, hey, these are the red flags, or this is a really good buy because of these reasons. So I go through the logbooks, and I have a mechanic that I bring along. So we go through the logbooks. So we did the pre-buy process. I did the test flight. And then at the end of the day, the second really fun part about being a broker is if you're well acquainted with the airplane, or you're familiar with lots of airplanes in general, then you teach the guy to fly it.
Okay, sure.
But that's kind of the process. And then obviously there's paperwork and all that goes into it. I've made a couple very costly mistakes with paperwork, so I don't do paperwork no more. I shipped it off to a third party. So literally I'm just the guy that's working with typically my friend, and he wants to buy an airplane to do this. We go find the airplane, and then me and my mechanic friend, we go inspect it, pre-buy it, test fly it, and I actually just did one last month for a guy. We bought him an Aero Turbo Aero 3. Okay. And he's just as happy as can be. And it needs a new engine, but in about a year, he'll get the engine back, and I'll teach him how to fly Turbo Aero 3.
That's kind of an interesting deal where you not only do this brokering, but now you've got an avenue of like, hey, I'll teach you how to fly this thing too. That's
exactly, yeah. It's a really fun, layering, and
Yeah.
that's another thing that I've learned in aviation is you can't be one dimensional, right? Like
Yeah.
one dimensional is you're just an average Joe at best. Like you have to have depth of knowledge and you have to have, breadth of experience. So I mean that's why I do, even though I'm flying a Gulfstream now, I still run a flight school because I realize that the Gulfstream, you're in a different league, yes, but you're not in what I call the grassroots of aviation anymore.
Yeah.
So you're definitely outside of that realm, and that's a negative in the sense that you lose touch with, I'm not going to say reality, but you lose touch with the basics. Like, what is flying about? How do you stay safe? Like, what are just some of the basic fundamentals that will keep us alive? It's really easy in a jet to forget that. But then I come back here, and now I'm teaching students again, and I'm keeping myself, deep in knowledge, all the way from, how do you enter a pattern, all the way to how does aerodynamics work at 45,000 feet.
Sure.
So that to me is what a rounded pilot should look like. Is someone that, when you go to the airlines or whatever, don't give up on GA, because GA is where the grassroots are, and that's what'll keep you alive in the long run.
Yeah, I actually just saw a post from a YouTuber where he's he's been a fighter pilot. He now flies for airlines, and he's like, I'm going to go back and learn how to fly a 152 again. Back to where it all started. He goes, and it's not just as easy as you'd think to just jump right back into that after all this time and these fast-moving jets,
Yep, you get into it and you're like, it takes me a solid day when I transition from one to the other. It takes me a solid day to come back and be like, oh, I got to slow down, and oh, man, I got gauges, and the thing doesn't think for me, and I got to think for myself now. Oh, boy, here we go.
Right. So you get into the Falcon. Where does your career go from there? What kind of flying are you doing at that point?
So the Falcon was a North and South American aircraft. Like, we didn't go across, I think the farthest, we could go to Europe, but our range was really North and South America, Hawaii included. But we did, I think in that airplane, the farthest north I ever flew was Anchorage, Alaska, and the farthest south was there's an island just north of, but down the islands changed in the Caribbean. I can't remember what it's called, but just north of south of Brazil. So that was really the range of that aircraft. So lots of international flying. It was very difficult. I'm not gonna lie a little bit. Like, my first 6 months, I was a train wreck in that Falcon, and I went back to the captains I flew with later on in my career, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry for the crap I put you through. And of course, they all laugh and they were good sports about it. But that's kind of what we did. So lots of South America, lots of the Caribbean, Central America, North America. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was really, really hard. Coming out of an Aztec to a Falcon was just like jumping light years.
Is that just from how fast the aircraft is going and how fast ahead do you have to think, or
everything involved? So, number one, I'd never flown in New York's airspace, and the company is based in Albany, New York.
Okay.
So we fly, and our bread and butter is Teterboro. The dreaded Teterboro. Yeah. And Miami and Las Vegas and, anywhere where there's busy, we go. So yeah, speed was definitely a big part of it, but the speed wasn't really what, I'll say hampered me. It was just the quantum leap from general, what I think is professional, to no, this is professional flying. Okay. It's almost indescribable what that transition is like unless you have done it. But going from flying GA, IFR clearances are clear direct to, it's 10,000 feet is the highest you've ever gone. 200 knots was a really crazy day. But now transitioning into an airplane where you're cruising every day at 40,000 feet plus, you're going at Mach 0.80, about 500 miles an hour. You're going into these airspaces like New York at 300 knots, 200 knots. The transitions and the arrivals and IFR is what really, really threw me. Because that I think is the biggest difference between just GA, I call it Bubba Joe's go get a hamburger flying, and professional flying is like IFR is on a whole nother level. Like, there's nothing that can prepare you for IFR at that level. Like, and the controllers are mean. Like, good Lord.
Well, you were in New York too, so I guess there is that.
Well, yeah. I mean, that doesn't help anything. But I mean, even like chill Florida, like, my first couple flights down there, they're giving me these clearances and crossing restrictions, and I'm fumbling and stumbling. They're like, "Who is this guy?" And then my captain's having to apologize to him. Like, "I'm sorry, he's in training."
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that was probably the quantum leap. Like, yes, the speed was hard, but the accuracy, the precision, the procedures, the books on those aircraft are thousands of pages long. So it's just I had never been experienced to that level of detail, that level of workload, that level of just I forgot how to fly. It was nuts.
So you talked a bit about earlier saying that logistics is like putting puzzles together, moving the pieces around. And did that prepare you a little bit for this huge quantum leap as far as being able to put that puzzle together of how to fly these approaches and transitions and all that?
Sort of, yeah, because like, you're taught all the stuff. Like, you're taught how to fly a SID, you're taught how to fly an ODP, you're taught how to write down a clearance, but the puzzle pieces didn't get bigger, they just got smaller and more complex. So it's the same puzzle, but just a different picture. So yeah, like that did help a lot with number one with the discipline. The discipline from the military really helped transition me to the Falcon. What set me apart from a lot of other FOs that I was with, this is something I would tell everybody to do. How you set yourself apart and how you learn that aircraft and learn that flying is when you're off duty, you go to the airport and you literally sit in that airplane. And I spent hours and hours and hours, and I became real good friends with the line guys because they would pull out the power card for me, and I'd fire the airplane up, just the avionics, and I was sitting there for hours and read and think and practice and do the steps. And that's what really set me apart from other FOs that I was coming along with, because they didn't do that. And like I said, about 6 months, and then I finally had it. Like I was pretty solid, but a lot of those other guys were like a year to a half, just because they didn't have that discipline and that time management, and that I'll also call it the curiosity. Just like, how does this work?
That's a
what does this do? If I push this, how does that happen? And because you push one button and it fixes 30 different things. Yeah. So as I'm mentoring like the young FOs now that are coming into the jet program, my number one thing I tell them is you have to be curious. There's so much out there that no one's going to be able to tell you everything, because that's the thing that I see is that they don't study what they're not told to. Because again, and I think this is talking out of my butt here a little bit, but that might be also a little bit out of the 141 program. They're taught very structured, very rigid. You study this, but they're told everything. Here's the syllabus, do this. And when you get into that world, there is no syllabus. You're just handed a stack of books and said, here's 3,000 pages of airplane stuff and company procedures and company policies. And by the way, here's a 200-page book of how the company runs.
Yeah, yeah.
And they don't have the discipline, or again, I call it the curiosity, to just go and look and go, how does all this work together? How does the puzzle fit? So that's what I tell all these young guys is no one's going to hand you the key just to the kingdom and just say, here you go. Like you grind now in GA, and then you grind more in the jet world. And then maybe when you're 60, you'll have it all figured out.
I love what you said about curiosity. I mean, I've heard the concept of, all right, you can't just be motivated. You have to be disciplined to be successful within aviation. Yes. But to be curious too, I love that as well, because I mean, you're right. I mean, if it's one thing to study what the book says, but it's another to be curious and find out why does this do that, and how does that affect what we're doing. So I love that analogy. That's great.
Yeah. Curiosity takes you from the rote. Go and see if I hear. Right. Curiosity takes you from the rote level, and it takes you to the understanding level, and beyond that to the application level.
Yep.
Because unless you're wondering why something happens, you're never going to ask the right questions, and you're never going to have the right headspace.
Yeah, I love that. I'm stealing that forever. So, do you keep flying the Falcon, or where does your career go from there?
So last year, let's see here. So I flew the Falcon for 2 years. The last 6 months, I was upgraded to captain. And that's I had my first experience as I was my second flight as a captain. I had a brand new FO, and that was the first time I ever thought to myself, I ain't gonna make it home. That was a terrible, terrible flight. But I flew the Falcon for 6 months as captain, and then I got a call from our chief, and he said, "Hey, do you want to go fly the Gulfstream?" And I was like, "Sure." So I've now been flying the Gulfstream for 1 year and 4 months, and the Gulfstream is fun because now we go to Europe. So I've been to Europe several times, back and forth across the pond, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. FOs again, but hopefully letting the captain upgrade soon. I hope.
So, how is the flying different for you as you're crossing the pond versus what you're doing before? What is that like?
Honestly, not much. And again, because now I know the puzzle. I know the pieces now. I know how they fit together. It's just a different set of books now. So it's the same. So whenever you're flying internationally, for those of you that don't know Jeppesen, learn Jeppesen.
I've heard that.
Yeah, if you don't know how to read a Jeppesen book or a Jeppesen chart, or you don't know Jeppesen logic, learn it now. Because Jeppesen tells you how to fly all over the world. So, when you're going to the Caribbean, you read in the Jeppesen books and you follow Jeppesen charts about how to fly in the Caribbean. It's the exact same thing when you're flying across the pond.
Okay.
There's a few different procedural things you got to do. Yeah, you have a lot more consideration that goes into emergency situations. But as far as putting the puzzle together, it's pretty similar. It's pretty similar. The hardest darn part was just the stinking phraseology, because EASA does not use FAA terms. So they'll tell you to do something, you're like, what? And then cabinets go, oh yeah, he means do this. And oh, okay. Every country over there has a unique take on the English language, I'll put it. They all speak English in their own way. So, you'll be talking to somebody, and all of a sudden in France, they'll hand you off to Italy, and then, you got to change your brain real quick, because then you're going to Barcelona, Spain, and it's like, oh, wait, now we have a Spanish accent. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
So that was probably the hardest part, was the phraseology, ATC communication phraseology. I mean, it's all standard, but you have to know where to look. And again, that comes back to that puzzle pieces. I knew what the puzzle was now. So now I just need to take out those puzzle pieces and now put in the proper pieces for around Europe.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't think about that. As you're moving through the different airspaces in Europe and just the different accents you're going to
sometimes it's a bugger. It's a bugger.
I bet.
The good news is they all use the same words and the same phrases. So as long as you can piece out, if it's a 6-word phrase, if you can piece out 3 of the words, you know what the phrase is. But
oh, funny. So, if I understand correctly, you do some aviation safety work too, right?
Yeah. So at my company, I am part of the safety department. Well, I'm not part of. I'm attached to the safety department. And I'm the lead safety investigator for when we have an aircraft that files what we call an SMS report. So for those of us in GA world, the SMS/ASAP program is kind of like the NASA reports.
Okay.
They used to be around, but these reports are much more company internal. So whenever those reports come through, there's 3 that came through a couple days ago. My job is to review the report and see what we can do to make it better. So these reports can range from anything from we had one just yesterday. It's about I think we had an altitude deviation because the autopilot went wonky, and we're talking and deviation is 200 feet. Okay. So you got to figure, okay, was it the autopilot's fault or was it the pilot's fault? And then I've got other reports in here about, hey, they went to Europe and they didn't have a safety vest on the airplane, so they got dinged on a ramp inspection because they didn't have a safety, reflective safety vest.
Sure.
And then I also range into stuff we've had 2 engine outs since I've been here, so digging into why did that engine fail and other things like that. So it's been a lot of fun.
Are there aspects of that you feel has made you better at what you do as a pilot?
100,000%.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm not going to call it back chair quarterbacking because you never ever want to get into that mindset of I'm going to find what they did wrong.
Yeah.
But what is remarkable to me is how a lot of I'll call it probably 80% of the mistakes that are made, just in what I've seen in our company, and I'm sure this translates to the rest of aviation, it's never the big things. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, we have engine failures, but like, that's not the pilot's fault. You know, he didn't kill the mixture. I mean, we had an oil pump went out on that one. But I'll take like an altitude deviation, let's say. It's remarkable how smart everything is, right? But it still comes down to the very simple: bad data in, bad data out.
Sure. Okay.
And a lot of, like I said, 80% of the investigations that I look into, the core problem is failure to follow procedures. You know, so like I was saying earlier, we have, thousands of pages of procedures and books and blah, blah, blah. Well, about 150 pages of that is very detailed ways that we operate in the cockpit with two pilots. This pilot says this pilot does that.
Yeah.
This pilot pulls this pilot says that. So we get very, very detailed in how that process works. And what's remarkable is when people don't follow those, guidelines, it's you do it this way. That's where we see the problems.
Okay.
So it kind of comes down to a two-part problem, really, or a two-part issue. Number one is we don't have the experience anymore in the pilot community to it's not cover up, but absorb. Let's go with absorb. If a pilot makes a mistake, you can absorb it by correcting it, right? Like,
okay.
And the airplane won't know, the computer won't know, we won't know. But there's not that experience anymore to know, oops, if I did this is going to happen. So now we have a lot more mistakes coming out because the process isn't being followed, and it's being followed by greener people. Gotcha. So the greener people don't understand why the process is there, so they think, oh, well, I can do it when it's convenient. And then it's like, no, it's there because, number one, these things are very complicated. Like these are complicated airplanes. They're fast airplanes. Things happen in the blink of an eye, and you're like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
So the failure to follow written procedures is the number one problem that we see coming out of these reports. Just people are unwilling to operate in a way that is prescribed to them. They, because pilots are very free spirits. Like, I'm a free spirit. I'm not going to lie a little bit. I hate following rules, right? Luckily, I have the military background to where I understand that, if I need my soldiers to move to do this, it requires discipline, right? And the same thing applies to flying. Flying is a disciplined endeavor. You can't be up there and just think to yourself, oh, I want it to be, Joe Blow and go, tootle around and it'll be fine. No, like even GA, one thing that I preach here in my school, which I take directly from this, is everything is procedural. Like the startups, taxiing, flying, how we do the maneuvers. Like, my theory is, if you do the same thing the same way every time, you're going to get a very similar result.
Yeah.
So why are we spending all this time and energy figuring out a new way to do something if we have a process and a documented way that we know works?
Yeah.
I'll just use an example of, like, in my school, like slow flight, right? One of my favorite things to do in a BFR, a banana flight review, when I'm given one, is I love to tell folks, okay, I want you to fly this airplane at 70 miles an hour at 4,000 feet. And I just wait. And it's a solid 5 minutes of them fiddling with the power, of them swinging the nose up and down, and it's just near whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
And then I take the plane over, and I'm like, okay, hold on, let's try something here. So we know that this power setting is for cruise. Okay, let's do it 2400. How about we move the power to 2100? How about we are patient, and let's just let the nose, gradually climb to maintain altitude. Let's see what happens. And within 20 seconds, they have it. So it's a disciplined way of flying, as opposed to just, we're going to beat the airplane into submission. We're high on final, no big deal. Chop the power, slip it in. Yeah, we got it. If you're high on final, go around. Like, you are unstabilized. So it's that mentality that I try to instill into these guys here is, number one, recognition of a problem and the acceptance of, oh, it's not right, I'm not going to do it. But that then directly leads into, when you're flying bigger, heavier metal, of you cannot be a test pilot. Like, you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the time, you don't have the parameters.
Yeah.
So if there is a way that they tell you to do something, it's for a reason. And it's because other people have either been killed or violated for it.
Yeah.
So that's my encouragement to, like, these guys especially, is when you get to the big wigs, when you get to flying with the jets, like, become a sponge and, like, burn those procedures into your head, because they are there for a reason, and they're there to keep you safe. And then for the GA folks, like, my encouragement to all of them folks is, like, hey, yes, flying is fun, but you have to be disciplined. There's one way to enter a pattern, and I've probably seen 30 variations of that one way.
Yeah,
but there's one way, and the reason for that one way is because now we all know what we're doing. So when I enter a pattern, I don't got to worry about where's the random guy coming out from this odd angle on altitude that I might not see.
100%. You gave me a good place to segue, though. We're talking a bit about, I mean, obviously safety, but how you're applying this as well to those that you're mentoring in GA. So you also are running a flight school. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm probably just a glutton for punishment. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, you might be.
So yeah, I mean, on top of the National Guard, on top of the jet stuff and the safety stuff, yeah, we also run a flight school here in Branson, Missouri. Got 3 instructors working on a 4th. That's working all under me. And really, it started from, number one, just the love of general aviation. Like, I love GA. I think it's, again, it's like I said earlier, it's the grassroots of aviation. It's where we start. It's where you have the most fun. But it's also the most dangerous, again, because unfortunately, like we talked about earlier, that there's a lot of that discipline that is lacking, and people just think that getting in the airplanes are driving your car. So I wanted to provide, number one, opportunities to young pilots, because that was something that, again, I got very, very fortunate with. Like, I think I was a week after I got my CFI, I was hired by a school in Springfield. A shout out to Joshua Musson. But I like, even now I've got probably 4 resumes in my email for CFIs just desperately looking for jobs somewhere. So that was one thing that I wanted to do, is I wanted to provide an opportunity for other young pilots, because I know I was very lucky and I wanted to give that back. Number 2 was I was really fed up with I'm not going to call it it's just a general this not nostalgia, but just the general idea of rental airplanes are kind of on their last legs.
Okay.
And that always bothered me. So, like, I wanted to provide a place that had really safe and really highly maintained airplanes, which is oftentimes impossible because of it's cost a lot.
Right.
But I wanted to provide opportunity for young pilots. I wanted to provide safe airplanes for renters or instructors. And the third is I wanted to be able to pass on what I had learned, because like I had a lot of critical learning experiences. Well, we'll call them, and I wanted to pass that on. So that's what we do here. Is I take what I learned from not only from when I was flight instructing in a GA, but I also bring in what I'm learning from the jet world. And I'm instilling that into my private students. These ideas that, how do you fly a big jet? I dumb down those principles, and that's what we do in the small airplanes. Because, again, you're getting a little CFI-ish here, but that whole thing of primacy, it's not just the first thing that you saw, right? But it's also the first concept that you were introduced to. And as the first thing that you see and are here and do is disciplined flying, procedural flying, thorough pre-flights, lots of math, the why behind everything, then that is the foundation that will then hopefully direct them forward with that proper curiosity that we talked about earlier of, because I don't just stop at the, do this. It's like, hey, you want to do X, Y, Z because you get A, B, C as a result.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, that's why, number one, I'm a glutton for punishment. But two, I really do love GA. And three, I wanted to give opportunities to folks that were, didn't have them.
Yeah. So how do you juggle it all? It has to be a juggling act.
Well, so luckily, it's all very compartmentalized. So my jet job is 12 on, 10 off.
Okay.
And I have a really good working relationship with my safety coordinator. And when I am off on my 10 days, like, I only do a few projects. I don't really do much work in those 10 days for the jet. So then I'm fully into the flight school. So now I'm in the flight school for 10 days. So I can kind of turn Jet World off. And then when Army comes, again, I can turn off Jet World because they know, like, it's federal law, they have to let me go. So I can click that off. I tell my instructors, hey, you got this. I'll be a phone call away if you need me. But they've all been really well trained. They're all super responsible, thank God. And then I can go into Army mode. So for me, the balancing act is just very compartmentalized. I'm in this box, or I'm in this box, or I'm in this box. But I have principles that overflow, to different boxes. But my brain, I have 3 different brains.
Gotcha. Yeah, it seems like so much to juggle. I suppose when you break it down like that, it's a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, 100%. And then a very, very detailed calendar.
Yeah, I bet. Probably live and die by that thing. If it's not on there, it's not happening.
Legitimately.
So the last question I'm going to ask you, I feel like we probably answered in part, but I'll ask it anyways. Is there any specific advice that you would give to someone looking to switch careers into aviation?
Yes. So number one, a lot of people don't adequately. Well, how can I put this? Let's take someone. I have this happen quite a bit in my school, right? So let's take someone that is right now he's doing concrete work and he wants to become a pilot. Okay. A lot of the success of a transition, not just in this career, but in any career, is posturing, right? No. So is your household in order that you can effectively, dial down this one aspect of your life and ramp up this other aspect? So number one comes back to your home. Like, your home has to be balanced. Unfortunately, happy wife, happy life and all that, but no, it's more than that. Like in my case, I would not be here without the support of my wife, 100%.
Sure. Yep.
So number one, you have to make sure that your home is balanced, because it's going to be 2 years of just rocks.
Yeah,
it's
right.
a bumpy road. Number two is, and this is a hard one, because you have to find a way, especially as you're transitioning, unless you have the ability to take out $100,000 loans. That's about the cost of a 91. We'll call it a 91 transition from job A to pilot. It's about $100,000. So if you have the financial ability to just turn off and focus for 2 years to drop $100,000, then more power to you. But like what I was doing to supplement was I Ubered. Something that provides you the flexibility that you're not tied to a clock. You can work when the weather is crap, because that's what really boils down to, is you have to be able to figure out how to make money when the weather is bad so you can fly when the weather is good.
Yep.
So how to set that up and how to navigate, that can sometimes, that's a critical step, but it's also very difficult. Like, I get that. And then number three is you have to, once you have those two pieces in order, you have your home in order and in the proper space to accept 2 years of rocks. Yeah. You have the job that allows you the flexibility, or a way to make money that allows you the flexibility to fly when the weather's good and not when the weather's bad. Then you have to just commit. You have to be able to just say, I'm going to fly 3 days a week no matter what, or whatever it might be. A lot of people think that I'll fly once a week and, I'll get there eventually. And then 3 years down the road and they're just still wearing their instrument. So that's the last thing that I would tell folks is if and when you decide to commit, you have to go all in. You can't dip your toe in. You can't just go, I'll work on this and take it off, then work on this and take it off. Like, you can, but it's going to ultimately cost you more time and more money and more frustration. because like the individual that flies twice a week, you might have, so out of that, let's say it's probably a 4-hour block, you might have 45 minutes of actual learning. You know, everything else is just trying to not forget what you did the last time, right?
Yeah.
1 hour one flight a week is even worse. So at a minimum, if you're looking to not drag this out and to actually make the career change, you need to commit to being, if not in the airplane, at least at the airport 3 days a week to do something, whether it's ground school or whether it's simulator. We got the simulator right here behind me. If it's in the airplane, if it's just sitting in the darn thing, running through checks and just studying, like that's where I see a lot of people stumble, is they don't commit because they get so distracted with everything else. That's why I say it starts to be at the very beginning, where you have to set your household up to be like, look, I'm making a change. It's going to be 2 years. I'm going to be at the airport a lot. You know, bring the kids along. We don't care.
Yeah.
And then you find the job that provides you flexibility, and then you just have to just commit and say go. And if you can do those 3 things, then you're set up pretty well for success.
Well, Caleb, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story with us and to just chat with aviation for an hour with me.
Yeah, I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
It was nice. All right. Well, thanks again for your time, and best of luck in your endeavors.
Thank you.
I would like to say thank you once again to Caleb for joining me on this episode of Fly the Transition. There are so many little nuggets that I took out of this interview that I'm not even sure where to start. But since I have to, I think I'll probably start with the one that I liked the most, and that was the concept of be curious. I think it's easy for us to dive into the books and study what we need to study for the tests or for our check rides, but I think there's something to be said about diving a little bit deeper and understanding the why behind some of those questions instead of just answering the questions for a test. It goes beyond that rote memorization into the true levels of understanding and application of the material. So just the concept of being curious and digging a little bit deeper, I think, is a really great takeaway from Caleb in this interview. Another one is how he's able to juggle both professional flying and the high speed, high altitudes of that, busy airspaces, but also staying in touch with general aviation. Not only that, but merging that with this flight school and helping to merge some of those concepts with that early primacy stages of someone's flight training, where there's so much impact in the information that you're taking in and the processes and all that. There's just so much opportunity for good or bad influence. So I think it's really great that he's able to take those 2 concepts and make them for the benefit of his students. There's so many good nuggets there. I could probably make a whole other episode just with my thoughts. But instead of that, I would encourage you to contact me, leave a message or comment on this episode. If you're listening on Spotify, that is a feature that they have now that you can leave a comment to individual episodes. Or you can reach out to me on any of my social medias, which again is at Fly Midwest Jim on either Facebook or Instagram. And if you like what I'm doing here on the Fly the Transition podcast, I would really appreciate a 5-star rating and a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Believe it or not, it really does help with the algorithms and helps to push the podcast to more potential listeners who could benefit from this kind of content in their life. I mean, who couldn't benefit from more aviation in their life? You can also make sure to subscribe, not on just your device, but any of your aviation friends' devices, so that you never miss another fresh episode of Fly the Transition. And if you or someone you know would be a great guest for a future episode of Fly the Transition, I would encourage you to reach out to me at flythetransition@gmail.com, and let's arrange for an interview so that we can tell your or their story of aviation career transformation. And one last reminder, don't forget about the Aviation Podcaster question and answer meet and greet at AirVenture this year, Saturday, July 26th, 11:30 a.m., forum stage number 3. Be sure to show up, say hello. I've got plenty of stickers from both podcasts to hand out, so I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at the big show. So that will do it for this episode of Fly the Transition. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your dreams soaring high, and we'll see ya at Oshkosh.
You've been listening to Fly the Transition. Life is too short for you not to do what you love. And our passion is to give you all the tools you need to make the transition from doing what you do to being in the aviation industry. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, you can reach out by email at flythetransition@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at Fly the Transition. And the website for Flying Midwest Media is flyingmidwest.com. Keep soaring. See you next time on Fly the Transition.